What's good, beautiful people? Welcome back to my channel. I am Kenya right now, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the date from hell. Story time. So, this actually happened many, many years ago, but it is so signature of the type of experiences that I have in life, not only with men and on dates, but just in general. I'm telling you, some of the craziest, most ridiculous things happen to me where when I'm retelling this to my friends, they're like, "No way. That did not happen. Are you serious?" Now, this was back in the day for any of you Milwaukee folk when I lived on or off of Brady Street on like Franklin Place or something like that. So I was returning, I think, some type of vacuum cleaner, something to that effect, but there was a Walgreens in my neighborhood, so I was walking to Walgreens, and I believe it was during the summer, so it was a bright, beautiful, sunny day, and I'm just, just happy to be walking down the street, and I run into this guy. I pass by this guy who's hanging at a corner at a bar. So I'm sure most of you are not familiar with Milwaukee's East Side, but Milwaukee's East Side is this very diverse area where a lot of people hang out. There are tons of restaurants, bars, a lot of things to do, and it's a really cool, eclectic type neighborhood. And so I'm walking down the street in the middle of the day. It's maybe like 12 to 2 in the afternoon, something like that. And I run into this guy, and I see him looking at me, but I'm looking at him because I thought he looked familiar. I'm like, oh, that looks like the guy that I just met a few weeks ago at one of my friends' get-togethers that she had. I think she was in town for a short while, and she had a meetup at a restaurant, and he looks like the guy. So I walk up to him. I said, "Do you know someone named?" And I said the name, and he was like, yeah, I know her. And I was like, oh, and just from there we started talking. And so he tells me that he's into real estate, and I tell him what I do. At the time I was a freelance copywriter, and he was like, oh yeah, my business partner and I've been looking for a copywriter. We need someone to help us with our, writing our marketing materials. And so we exchange business cards, and that was that. I went on about my day. I returned the item. I finished shopping, got something to eat before I had to go to rehearsal. Back in the day, I used to dance for a hip hop performance group. Actually, this was the one that I co-founded with two other women, two or three other women. At any rate, so I was on my way to do that, and then after the rehearsal, dance rehearsal, when I got back home, I got a text message from him saying, "Hey, I'm back, in the Brady Street area. Do you want to meet for drinks?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" He was a cute guy, and he seemed to have his head on straight, was about his business, doing productive things. So I was like, "Okay, we'll check it out." And we go to this restaurant called Casa Blanca, which is in Milwaukee. It's a Moroccan restaurant. But anyway, the setting was a good setting. And we're talking about all different kinds of things from, I think he said he used to go to a university in Ghana, of all places. And I had been to Ghana. And so he had also traveled to other places outside of the country. So I'm like, wow, this guy is really interesting. He's not the typical Milwaukee guy. And he's just talking to me about his experiences and his beliefs, and his life philosophy, different things like that. And so we're sharing, and then we finish up at the restaurant and decide to take a walk. He asked me if I wanted to go bar hopping, and I was like, sure, why not? And at that moment, I'm like, wow, this guy is really cool. I'm really glad I met him. But at the same time, I don't like dating. I hate dating, and so often in my life, I'm on I'm in a no dating phase, where I'm like taking off from dating, being introduced to men, anything like that, because most of the time I just don't have time for it. And so, so at the time I wasn't thinking anything at all about like, oh, maybe we could be together. It was just like, oh, he's a really cool guy. It was just the fact that he seemed really cool, and very smart, very business minded, very a free thinker, which is, I don't meet a lot of men like that, and I definitely don't meet a lot of men like that from Milwaukee. And well traveled. So it was like ping ping ping, like these are a lot of good qualities to have in a person. So we start walking and he's like, "Hey, let's not walk on the main street because, I don't want to run into any of these crazy Brady Street drunks." And I was like, this is the middle, not even the middle of the week, the beginning of the week. So I was like, on a Tuesday, why would we run into crazy Brady Street drunks on a Tuesday? Usually things start to turn up on Thursday. But I was like, whatever, okay, it doesn't matter. You want to take the road less traveled. I know people who are like that, who like to take the non-busy streets, so whatever. I didn't make a big deal out of it. So we're talking, and he's giving me this whole spiel about like the money he makes with his company and how he, when he's with a woman, he really likes to treat her and make sure she's taken care of and all this stuff. And I think part of me was just like, okay, he's giving me the spiel now. But at any rate, I was still listening, and he was telling me how, I'm not like the other women that he's met before, and, I'm really interesting and different and all these sorts of things. And so we come to a T street where we can't keep going forward. We have to make a right or left, and we ended up making a right, which took us back onto Brady Street. And he's still talking, and we're having this good conversation. It's a nice night out. We don't even get one block down before I hear this noise in the street, and I turn and I look, and this car like stops in the middle of the street. Now luckily it's a Tuesday night, and it was late at night, so it wasn't any traffic at the time. But they stop in the middle of the street and bag up. And they're backing up to like meet us where we are. And then all of a sudden he walks over to the car and leans in and starts talking to the person. So I'm just sitting there waiting. I mean, part of me was thinking like, oh, that's kind of rude. He's talking to this person for a minute and he didn't even say, oh, excuse me, or, hey, this is my friend so-and-so. He just walked off and went over to the car. Next thing I know, I hear, who is he? Who is he right behind? Next thing I know, she jumps out of the car and comes over to me. She's still talking to him, but we're all together now. She's like, who is she? Who is she? He was like, nobody. Now I'm sitting there right there, and you gonna say that I'm nobody? Excuse me? And then she turns to me and was like, oh, you know him. What about me? Who are you? I am in total and complete shock. As crazy and as the weird things that happen to me, this has never happened to me before. This is not my flow. This is not the type of situations that I ever find myself in, because I don't have time for that kind of mess. So I'm standing there in complete and total shock. And the whole time when she was even talking to me like, who is she? Who, how blah, blah, blah. How do you know my fiance? That's the other thing that she came out of her mouth. And the whole time he's standing behind her like, and sort of like, while all of this stuff is going on, I'm looking like, is this for real? Is this actually happening right now? And then she paused, like waiting on me to answer. And all I could say was, are you serious? Like, that's all I could get out. Like, I didn't even know what else to say. And so I guess my answer was just like, girl, please, what you talking about? So she goes back to him, was like, who is she? He was like, she's nobody. Like, all this stuff. Next thing I know, she straight B slaps him, like the type of slap that you can hear, and it like turned his face like never in my life have I witnessed somebody being bitch slapped before. Like it was something out of the movies. And then after she slaps him and he's like, he was like, get in the car. So he gets in the car and they just drive off down Brady Street. And I'm still standing there looking at the car go by down the street like, what just happened? I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone, and I was left there standing alone on the sidewalk on Brady Street in the middle of the night. So I just walked home. Oh my God, it was the craziest thing ever. And I just thought to myself, You are engaged to be married. What in the world are you doing picking up women off the street? First of all, you're going to lie to her and tell her that yes, you are that person that you think she is, number one. And number two, I don't know. It blows my mind. But then it's also like, how did she even know to come looking for him on Brady Street? Is this a routine of his that he does where he's always hanging out on Brady Street picking up women? How would you even know? It was just the most craziest experience ever. And that is my story of the date from hell. Hope you enjoyed it. Deuces.